There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America. Welcome, Jordan Chariton live, Status Coup. It is Wednesday, December 11th, the year 2024 in the United Corporations of America. And I think the term United Corporations of America, very apt for the current times and story. Joining me by popular demand, returning champion Zeynab, independent journalist who has been on both sides. She's been in politics and now outside trying to hold the bastards accountable. And Zeynab, this is, I think, your first time on with me since this massive story that's kind of unleashed the floodgates. This murder of the United Healthcare CEO by alleged, I'll keep saying alleged killer, Luigi Mangione. And there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. We have stayed on this because I know the media is going to move on from it. CNN and the corporate media. I don't really think they want to highlight this too long term, since they have a lot of commercials from Pfizer and United Healthcare, and they make a lot of money from the healthcare industry. I think Politico and other popular newsletters that go out in people's inboxes have often been sponsored by Pfizer and other for-profit healthcare. But there's a wider thing going on that corporate America is fucking scared. Yeah, corporate America is scrambling, and you haven't really seen this as much on in the news. But corporate America, ever since this man was gunned down, they are the phone is off the hooks to enhance security, to assess threats, and more. Before we get to that, a whole new industry spawned. Yes. So before we get to that, I want to show one more time. We showed this obviously yesterday, and then get your thoughts. This is the alleged killer being brought into an extradition hearing yesterday, Luigi Mangione, and obviously he spoke out.
And it's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
So his words, according to the reports, were, "This is completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's lived experience," as I reported in an earlier video. And by the way, we got a whole lot of new subscribers thanks to this story, people coming to watch our coverage of this. So welcome. Smash the like button so we can get this live stream out to more people. Subscribe if you're new here. Also, as I reported earlier, again, I will put a parent. It's not confirmed that this is him, but there's multiple reports that his online review for the Unabomber's book, Ted Kaczynski, he did say that, his crimes were violent and he belonged in jail for his crimes. But he did say it's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out. Mangione wrote in a review of the book in January, "He was a violent individual," referring to the Unabomber, "rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary." In his review, he also wrote thoughts someone else had shared about the Unabomber in a Reddit thread online, quoting from a commenter who described Kaczynski's acts as a war and revolution, and saying that he had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere. So that's where I want to
stuck out to me from.
That's where I want to jump off from you, because for those that don't know, you could tell you were involved with Brand New Congress, which was a progressive effort to, install progressives into the Democratic Party in Congress. not just Democrats. You all were pushing, if need be, Republicans who were progressive. Then you were involved with Justice Democrats. You basically, for better or worse, helped AOC get elected. You wrote a lot of her speeches back in 2018, I believe. So you were there during the Bernie wave. And when I'm seeing, I keep saying I'm not telling people go get your guns and mow down CEOs, but I do think we're starting to reach this precipice, and based off what we're finding out about him, and we'll get to the corporations freaking out in a minute, people have done the democracy thing. They've protested, they've voted, they organized, and it's not getting them anywhere. And I think a lot of people are responding to what he did, right or wrong, because they feel like the system is rigged and there's nothing they could do democratically to change it.
When it comes to Medicare for all, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats was a big proponent of that. I can remember I saw you were speaking with who was it? It wasn't Ron Placone that you had on the other day. Who was
Graham Elwood?
Oh, it was Graham. That's right. And you and Graham were talking about how we have had protest, and it put me in mind that you were saying no one showed up. That's one of the first times that I met you in person, was showing up to a Medicare for All protest, as I recall. You were one of the only few journalists to actually show up and work the beat, even back when you were still with TYT forever ago, 2017, 2018. And in 2017, Justice Democrats launched and Brand New Congress launched a Medicare for All initiative where we were pushing for co-signers for a bill that Ro Khanna had actually introduced, Cummings and Ro Khanna had introduced in 2017 for Medicare for All. The day that we had our very first press conference, we were working with Nurses United Union. We were also working with PNHP, which is the physicians union, to write and draft the language. And I remember we held our first press conference on the roof of the building where CNN and two other conglomerates are housed, and no one showed up to the press conference. And it happened to be the same day that the Save the ACA protests were happening, that John McCain gave the thumbs up.
Let me just, for people that don't live in New York, because I think it was Columbus Circle, right? Where CNN is? We
were actually in DC.
Okay.
It was their DC headquarters. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we actually went to, later after this press conference, we went to the protest. And I remember that people from moveon.org were literally spitting spitwads at us, yelling at us, grabbing our signs, telling us to leave because, we're threatening the ACA by asking for Medicare for all, which was absolutely insane to me. I didn't expect that. It was shocking. I expected to walk in with a group of, liberals or progressives that were there fighting for the ACA, and them to welcome us and share our Medicare for all signs and, partake in calling for Medicare for all, for universal health care. But instead, the reception was very different. But we have been organizing on this issue for a very long time. What was it, in 2020? There were 26. There was the Medicare for All rallies where we had 26 rallies in 26 different cities across the country. A massive one in Washington, D.C. Marianne Williamson spoke at. Several other individuals spoke at. Amy Villela, she traveled the country when she was running for office, sharing the story of her daughter who was refused care and sadly passed away. Scott Desnoyers was pushing for universal health care across the country. This isn't something that wasn't on the forefront of people's minds in 2020. This isn't a new issue. Obama ran on universal health care. Bill Clinton ran on the promises of universal health care. I think at this point, people are just fed up, and it's very strange to me that the media is acting like this is something that's new, that there's been no real protest. There's been no one's tried passive civil action on this.
Or scolding. I mean, we've shown clips of CNN saying, they condemn the murder, which I think most people are not like saying, hey, go get your guns and shoot down any CEO. But at the same
Exactly.
time, nobody is feeling necessarily so sorry for this man because they consider him a killer. So two things can be true. You're not saying go kill people like him, but if the people like him die, you can't fake tears for someone that you consider scum of the world. But we've shown clips of CNN scolding people for expressing glee about this, telling people this isn't the way, go organize, go get involved with the legislative process. Well, people have. People have been fighting for Medicare for all on the, forget the term Medicare for all for a second. People have been fighting on the federal level for universal health care, the state by state. Obviously, there's been some beef before between people who advocate for federal versus people who advocate to do it state by state. People, I will never forget this, Zaina. I don't know if we knew each other in 2016. It doesn't even matter if you supported Bernie or not, but just picture this to the people who are watching. And by the way, what do we got? Almost 1,000 people watching. So smash that like button, share this live stream. By the way, sign up for Zaina's Substack. We'll put the link in the description, the Bullhorn Bulletin. She does great work as an independent journalist. And we will shout out because we've been getting a lot of new members, which is awesome because you might not know, we've been on this beat for a long time, well before this CEO was gunned down. As far as I know, we're the only, if not one of the only, independent outlets in the land who has covered routinely protests for healthcare.
As one of the earliest organizers for the movement in 2017, I did the messaging and the press organizing for it. And I will say Status Coup was one of the only few that showed up every time. It was you and Chuck Modi and sometimes Savage Joy. And that would be it. That would be it.
By the way, in major cities, in DC, in New York, where media is, they wouldn't come cover it. But I want to point out that in 2016, Bernie ran out a lot of things, but his signature was healthcare, Medicare for all. There was a rally Bernie did in Union Square, in Washington Square Park, with the what are they called? The gates. There was 40,000 people between inside the park and outside the park. 40,000 people. I'll never forget it. Packed. And a lot of what he spoke of and a lot of the people who spoke was about Medicare for all. CNN did not take it live. They were literally, at the time I was there, people were texting me, they're showing Trump's empty podium. So when CNN had the opportunity to show live Bernie rallies with 40,000 people, where universal health care and people speakers expressing the horror stories of this evil for-profit system, they didn't show it. So I don't want to hear them lecturing anybody now about, you're evil if you're applauding this, or you're evil if you're gleeful. Go out and organize, go out and do it the peaceful way, because people have tried to do it the peaceful way. And polls show, and a poll could be written in any way to get any answer you want, but polls consistently show Democrats support universal health care, independents support it, so do Republicans in most polls, the majority of Republicans. So if we're a representative democracy and you have majority support across the board and you're not going to provide it, then people are, right or wrong, going to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah,
your thoughts before we get to corporate America's freak out.
Yeah, it's been misreported too. I just want to note, because some of these polls and stuff they're not genuine, because there has been a demonization of the term Medicare for all. There's been a demonization of the term socialized medicine, the mythologies about the death panels. We have death panels right now. Everyone knows that's what everyone is upset about. An insurance company being the middleman is essentially a death panel. It is. That's what we have. And the fact that there's this idea that it's going to cost people more, even though people are paying $500 to $4,500 a month for baseline crappy coverage. Sometimes people are starting to feel it. And when people are actually polled with precise language that says to cut out the middleman, that the government should ensure healthcare, that they should ensure that every American has healthcare. I'm not talking about health insurance. I'm talking about making sure that every individual has the ability to get the healthcare that they need, not insurance, because insurance is not healthcare. Insurance is health insurance. It's an industry, a private industry with a profit motive. Healthcare is something different. Healthcare is being able to go into the doctor like most industrialized country and be able to get the treatment that you need to live, and not just to live a healthy life, and to live a life where you have preventative measures from getting sick. Things like here in the United States, things like eye care and dental are considered secondary. You can't drive if you don't have a pair of glasses, if you need glasses. A tooth infection can cause you to go into cardiac arrest. You can get sepsis. You can get blood poisoning from a tooth infection. People die from that every year. These are emergent issues. And I think that there's a lot of deceptive polling I've seen from on the media right now about, the same kinds of things that came up last presidential election in 2020, the one before this, when people were like, people love their health insurance. They want to be able to keep their health insurance. But polling is deceiving because it'll ask questions and it'll say something like, do you support socialized medicine? Well, when people read that, they may not always understand exactly what that means. And they think, oh, this is communism. And they're going to say, no. If you polled that exact same person with something along the lines of, do you want to cut out the middleman? Do you want to get rid of insurance? Should our government and our tax dollars be going toward healthcare? They would say yes. And I found this in my individual polling I did when I worked at Brand New Congress for all the candidates. I found it when I was walking and I was knocking doors. I've talked to about 68,000 people about Medicare for all and about universal health care. And what I learned from that experience is it really is how you present it. And it's almost universal. There were very, very few people that I found in all these years of work that disagreed with it. If you took away the demonized terminology, we all agree. And I think we're seeing that come to fruition right now. And the media is ignoring it, and they shouldn't be.
Absolutely. And by the way, 1,200 people watching, so smash that like button. Also, another great thing, if you're new here, you might not know, we are one of the only outlets that actually leave the studio and actually go out on the ground. Right now, I'm trying to plan a trip before the end of the year, if not before the end of the year, early next year, to North Carolina. If you're unaware, there are hurricane victims sleeping in tents, nearly freezing to death in the wealthiest country on earth. So I want to get out there and cover that. We have other things we want to cover. We want to continue to cover on the ground, the fight for Medicare for all. Obviously, this stuff costs money. That's why most outlets don't do on-the-ground reporting. We want to continue to cover Flint, East Palestine, other corporate sacrifice zones. So yesterday, Zeynab, we got 75 new paid members, which is by far more than we've had in a day in a long time. New people, finding us. We got a lot of comments. How did we never see your channel on YouTube? You could thank YouTube and its suppression for that. And they signed up. So for those of you, before you go on your Christmas spree or your Hanukkah spree, please consider supporting us as low as $5 a month so we could fund the on-the-ground reporting. StatusCoup.com/join. You could join us for as low as 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. We're doing a special promo right now. If you become a member at $20 a month, which not everyone can afford, but if you can afford $20 a month, we will send you a copy of my book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up, signed by yours truly with a personal note. I just mailed out another 3. So sign up if you can. Now, I want to get to corporate America, because obviously this specific topic is about healthcare, but healthcare is linked to other industries. Wall Street is very heavily invested in the for-profit healthcare system. The media, as we've talked about, is making a shit ton of money from healthcare advertisers. And I saw the interesting article. I mean, there's been a little reporting on corporate America scrambling for enhanced security, but this goes a little further. This is from CNN.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't think that that's funny, but I'm not sad over some pressure coming down on corporate media. Like I'm saying, like you've said, I don't condone violence, but
Yep. Neither am I. Fear in the C-suite after UnitedHealthcare CEO gunned down. And as you could see, they scramble the face of, I don't know who that is. It says wanted, a corporate probably some type of corporate CEO. Corporations are scrambling to protect their senior executives as police warn of an elevated near-term threat against business leaders. Boards are reassessing security budgets, and CEOs are being told to delete their digital footprints. I want to return to that in a minute. So CEOs are being told to delete their digital footprints. The stunning killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson has shaken C-suites across the country, forcing leaders to ask themselves uncomfortable questions about their own preparedness for a threat landscape that appears far more serious than many realized just a week ago. Phones are ringing off the hook at top dollar security firms to keep the captains of industry safe. That's a generous phrasing, captains of industry. Quote, corporate America is nervous. Corporate America is nervous. People are on high alert. Keith Wojcicki, global head of intelligence at Kroll, told CNN in a phone interview, companies want to elevate their security posture. Healthcare is the target now, but who's next? The New York Police Department, an intelligence report obtained by CNN Tuesday, said it believed Thompson's killing was a, quote, symbolic takedown and could inspire others to act violently towards business leaders. Similar story from Fox News. UnitedHealthcare CEO murder sends executives scrambling to hire security. I won't read the whole thing, but the Wednesday assassination of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson will, quote, heighten executive awareness of vulnerabilities and likely lead to a new wave of new security contracts. In the short term, the incident highlights the need to perform threat assessments on the infrastructure or systems, but key personnel as well. Well, to be clear, and by the way, I mean, I'm not going to show it because honestly, this is YouTube and I don't want to risk them kicking us off. But there's wanted ads on New York City subways right now for the United Health Group CEO. So United Health Group is the parent company of United Healthcare, and the CEO, Andrew Whitty, he was the one where his video leaked, where he was mourning the death of that hero, Brian Thompson. And he said, we will continue to fight for safe care and against unnecessary care. Well, there's wanted ads with his picture on it. They're being ripped down, probably by the cops, but you're starting to see this pop up in New York City and elsewhere. So at the end of the day, whether you agree or not, Mangione has kind of unleashed, I believe, kind of a Robin Hood justice. I think he, a lot of what we're finding out about him, he might have been wealthy, but he saw the injustices against other people, and people are pissed, not just at the establishment, at corporate CEOs and corporations that they feel are threatening them. And I don't think this is going to be a one-off. I mean, I'm not calling for violence, but what did JFK said? I keep saying that quote, you know, when, let me make sure I get it right because I keep on botching it. When, hold on. Something, when peaceful, I lost it. United. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Corporate America could be spending lots of money right now to reassess their policies, particularly the health insurance industry. They could be spending money to change policy. They could be spending money to look into the healthcare horror stories people are sharing. Instead, it seems they want to build their fortress higher with barbed wire and build an army of security around them. I don't know if that's going to stop the hatred or attempted violence.
Well, there's a veneer of differentiating institutionalized violence from something like we saw, you know, from a murder that you can see with your own eyes. And they're trying really hard to distinguish between those two things, and it's not shaking out very well at all. People aren't falling for it because sure, you can say, yes, it's wrong to gun anyone down in the streets, but there's several things happening right now. People are dying from lack of health care. The boomers are aging up. People are seeing their parents right now. A lot of stories about people's parents or they themselves being denied care as they're getting older. And not, I mean, we're talking about people in their 60s, and our life expectancy in the United States, our median life expectancy has dropped. It's drastically dropping every year. And then there's some places like West Virginia and Kentucky where it's 20 years shorter than it is in other places in the country. The institutionalized violence we're seeing every day, we're seeing with the genocide in Gaza, we're seeing with what's happening. We've seen it, we saw it in Iraq, we saw it in Afghanistan, we've seen it with our warmongering, but we've also seen it with the poisoning in Flint, with the poisoning in East Palestine. We're seeing it with what's happening right now. And I think that mask, I think this incident, I think what happened to the CEO of United Healthcare ripped that mask off. This idea of institutionalized murder is different. You know, somehow it's different, and somehow these millions of people that are upset about it, it's legalized, so it's okay. But when something isn't illegal, you're supposed to feign, you know, people like Ben Shapiro coming out and being aghast about what happened. Right. And I think that's one of the, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like that's part of the zeitgeist. It's that differentiation between institutionalized violence. If my family member still dies from lack of health care, as mine recently did just 2 months ago, and United denied their claims, dragged their feet, or they might still be with me. So it's very personal to me right now. But I also...
And for those that don't know, if you don't mind me saying, your mother passed away recently. She was sick, but this was not expected that she was going to go.
Well, you and I have been talking. I've been sharing with you what had been happening for the last year, back and forth. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And she had to deal with the insurance companies. I know you, with a daughter too, have had run-ins. Everyone has. But
we all have. This is a universal phenomenon where they've spent the last year telling us that we're divided. We're 50-50 split in this country, and that, you know, we're the most divided that we've ever been. And now we're seeing across all political spectrums this understanding of human suffering and the understanding of who is to blame. And it's really shaking things.
I also want to show this just so you see, like, it ain't changing now as they build their walls and hire more security and, you know, maybe build a moat around their mansions. This is a doctor saying on Twitter, I sent this to you, Colin. Hey, United Healthcare, I completed a hysterectomy yesterday afternoon, discharged the patient home in the evening, saving United Healthcare and everyone some money. Discharge medications included 12 Vicodin. Retail cost $30. Vicodin denied pending prior authorization. Patient in pain all night. Way to go. And then United Healthcare, I guess Ask United Healthcare responded, we'd like to see what we could do to help. Please send a DM with the member's full name. The doctor responded, hi, Ruben. I don't know X.com was HIPAA compliant. Let's not DM confidential information. This kind of reminds me when the airlines get caught or called out on social media by someone with a following for, you know, shitty, you know, service or all the fuckery the airlines do, and somebody with a following goes at them. All of a sudden, they're responsive and they want to help, but what about all the other instances where they don't respond or they say, hey, you're sorry, out of luck? But that's just one instance that literally is happening now. But I got to say, I think the bottom line is we've lived in a tale of two cities, a new Gilded Age in America for a long time. But if their response is to build a higher wall with barbed wire around them, I actually think that's going to create more animosity against them. I actually think that might create more violence and erasing your digital footprints. I mean, you could erase it all you want, but there's the Wayback Machine and there's internet sleuths who could find their digital. So I think if their
these are
response...
publicly traded companies, they have there has to be public information on who is on their boards.
Yeah. And I don't often get to quote Elizabeth Warren in the positive because I think she's kind of a sellout. But she said something on this that was kind of further than even Bernie Sanders said. Elizabeth, this is a warning, she said. CEOs murder, a message that people can only be pushed so far. And I quote, this is Elizabeth Warren, the visceral response from people across the country who feel cheated, ripped off, and threatened by the vile practices of their insurance company should be a warning to everyone in the healthcare system, she told the Huffington Post. Violence is never the answer, but people can be pushed only so far. This is a warning that if you push people hard enough, they lose faith in the ability of their government to make change, lose faith in the ability of the people who are providing the healthcare to make change, and start to take matters into their own hands. Well, maybe you shouldn't have flip-flopped on Medicare for all, but that's another story. Again, Zeynab, we don't know every specific. I'm sure we'll find out of Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer. We know that he had crippling back pain, which I went through in prior videos. As I reported this morning, it seems by his writings online that several doctors said no to him for back surgery because they said he was too young for a spinal fusion. I mean, that's what we think was him posting it. He came from a wealthy family, so technically, I don't know if he literally couldn't afford it, but FDR was worth, in adjusted for inflation, $60 million. And he was the most progressive economically president we've ever had. So just because you're wealthy doesn't mean it doesn't affect you or you don't care, despite Chris Cuomo chiding people who are, Chris Cuomo
the
did a
irony
segment.
there.
Yeah. But I'd love your thoughts because honestly, to me, part of the big problem here is also the media.
Mm-hmm.
The people responding to this are mostly millionaires or whatever, hundreds of thousandaires. They have very good health care. If you're at CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, the New York Times, the Washington Post, even podcasters, Joe Rogan, this and that, they got good health care. If they get denied, it's a mild irritation. It's not life or death. They'll just pay out of pocket. So the very people that are the gatekeepers to the information, the very people that are providing the information to, unfortunately, the most reliable voters, which are older people. We got older people in our audience, but by the data, the most reliable voter is the older people, and they have been fed a steady diet of government health care and socialism and this and that. I don't really think elitist, wealthy people with net worths, Chris Cuomo of $16 million, should be the ones reporting on this. I would like to see, instead of CNN and the rest of them having panels night after night in reaction to this with law enforcement, how about you bring on some people with healthcare horror stories? Haven't seen one. You're muted.
I've not seen a single interview with someone who has commented on this issue. There have been doctors and nurses, people who's had their practices bought out, people who United Health helped bankrupt, as you talked about the other day. We have not seen a single one of these people be brought on and spoken to about this issue. It's all speculative rich people sitting around a table talking about, why people might be slightly angry about their healthcare, it's a little inconvenient. I've dealt with it before. No, you haven't. You may have. I'm not saying that some haven't, but it's highly unlikely that they're dealing with the kinds of things that everyday people are dealing with. And we're seeing the same. We're seeing some of this response from our elected officials as well, which is very frustrating considering that they have some of the best healthcare. They have essentially universal healthcare for themselves. We don't get, and they'll have it for their lifetimes because they were a member of Congress.
And if only we had, progressive members in Congress that ran on Medicare for all to do rallies now that this is out there in the in the news, to do rallies outside the White House, not glorifying Mangione, but calling for universal health care. I don't know. I haven't seen anything from AOC,
all of a sudden,
the squad.
Ro Khanna's talking about it again. And I'm like, good to see you again, Ro. It's been about 4 years, buddy.
Exactly. Before we move on, I want to shout out new Status Coup members. Eli signed up. Scott, Christopher, Kathleen, Kazia, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Amber, Jonathan, Julie, Natalia, Justine, and Yvonne. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You are supporting actual living, breathing journalism. As I said, if you're new here, we go on the ground. We do investigative reporting. I was just on the ground before the election in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin for a swing state trip. We've been to East Palestine 8 times since Norfolk Southern, another evil corporate criminal, unnecessarily detonated over 1 million pounds of toxic gas into Ohio and Pennsylvania. People are very sick. I actually just had a resident today send me pictures of her nosebleed because as they're digging out contaminated soil, they are pumping contaminated soil back into the air and causing more sickness for people. Not covered in the media. EPA tells everybody it's fine, so we don't need to cover
Also
it.
not covered by insurance.
No, good point. I can't tell you, I've covered Flint for 8 years. I just published my first book on the cover up in August, which everybody could get. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's also on audio if you want to listen on Audible. It's called We the Poisoned. You know how many Flint residents are going bankrupt because they have to put health care for their poisoning by the government? The government poisoned them, but regular doctors are not covered. Regular doctors cannot treat, for the most part, heavy metal poisoning, bacterial contamination. So they have to see specialists and environmental doctors, which are not covered. So the government poisons you, and then the corporations that buy off the government deny you care that you desperately need. What a sick fucking cesspool of a country that is. So please sign up if you can for as low as $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. But I want to move on specifically to UnitedHealthcare because their talking points that they're giving to their staff has leaked. This is from Ken Klippenstein, who's done good work on this. He's a journalist, independent journalist. So they've been sending out talking points for what to say and not say. In response to widespread public criticism following the murder of its CEO, UnitedHealthcare has circulated talking points to its employees that I've obtained. The talking points give a sense of the backlash from UnitedHealthcare's own customers. Characteristically out of touch, the communications guidance directs employees to say that their mission includes, quote, ensuring that everyone we have the privilege to service has access to the healthcare they need. Oh, I love that word, access. Not being able to assess care is, of course, the entire reason so many people are furious at the health insurance industry, Ken writes. The same glib tone is evident through the talking points, one of which instructs employees to refer to the late CEO, Thompson, as, quote, our esteemed colleague and a highly respected professional. Descriptions that are quite different than those from rank and file employees. Further on, the guidance makes specific mention of, quote, social media reports on claim denial rates, directing employees to basically say they're fake news. The quote, the information circulating online about our claims is false, one talking point reads. A chart being widely spread on social media is false. These assertions, however, make no reference to any specific information, so it's impossible to know which social media claims they're saying are false. So, Zeynab, their talking points, call Brian Thompson a hero and say, everybody out there, it's fake news. It's all in their head, these denial of claims. Also, I should point out this esteemed CEO, and I feel bad for his kids. I am human. But he presided over UnitedHealthcare as they put their foot on the gas to deploy artificial intelligence to increase their denial of claims. So this esteemed CEO was using bots to further deny claims, which ended up killing people. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
They're basically telling their employees to lie or risk losing their job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they also said don't talk to the media. Not surprising.
Right. That's another nail in the proverbial coffin, right? So not only are they trying to get a stranglehold on, they already have the mainstream media and the press essentially, but they want to make sure to keep their, and this is a massive massive corporation. So imagine the amount of people that they are hamstringing right now to speak from speaking about what they've witnessed. My thoughts are, I hope there's some whistleblowers that come forward and have some
Right.
courage. And I know that it takes a lot of courage to do something like that, but right now is a time, and I hope that I hope some people do come forward, and I hope that there would be some support behind them, mutual aid, things like that, to help them out if they do lose their job. But people need to speak up, and the more people speak up, the more secure you are in speaking up. What are they going to do? Fire 20,000 people for speaking up and telling the truth? It's an opportunity, but I think it shows. I think it shows that there's truth behind people's concerns. You know, somebody doesn't go play PR catch up like this if there's not something that they're trying to conceal.
And I also think, because I think one thing this story has done, and I see it in the new subscribers we got. I mean, I got people watching now that came here new, that are on the left, that are MAGA, that are, you know, libertarian. This is one issue. There's not really as big of a divide as people think. No. I mean, a lot of, when I was covering the Bernie campaign in 2016, and I covered Trump rallies too, a lot of Trump supporters, not a small amount, told me Bernie was their second choice. Not Ted Cruz, not, you know, whoever, Ben Carson, or name your Republican from the clown car then. And to be clear, you're not hearing peep from Trump on this. You're not hearing even what his healthcare plan is, because he doesn't have one. He said he has a concept of one. Trump, by the way, if you're an RFK fan, you should probably know this too. Last week, they were dining at Mar-a-Lago with the CEO of Pfizer and Eli Lilly. I guarantee you they weren't sitting there talking about make America healthy again. They were dining with the pharmaceutical execs. And to be clear, and this is not just Trump, this is the Democratic Party too, it's not always about the money you get directly from these industries. So, for example, why did Obama allow police to beat the living shit out of Native Americans in North Dakota in 2016? Why did Obama allow them to spray freezing water? Why did Obama send the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshals there to work with the oil police, right? It wasn't because Obama was directly getting so much money from the oil industry. The oil industry was giving more money to Republicans. They always have. But Obama and the Democrats were getting a shit ton of money from Wall Street. And Wall Street is the most heavily invested in pipelines, fossil fuel, etc. Same thing here. Wall Street is very heavily invested in the for-profit healthcare industry, whether it be for-profit healthcare companies, pharmaceutical companies, medical managers, you know, all the other, intermediaries and unnecessary bureaucrats. So that's why you're basically hearing, we condemn this, evil murder, and, we listen to the American people, but you're not going to hear a policy change because they're all purchased. The Democrats are purchased by this industry and the Republicans are purchased from this industry. So I think, the solution, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be coming from any election or any elected politician. I'm not saying violence, because to be clear, yes, your instinct could be to cheer for Luigi Mangione, but the more violence perpetrated against CEOs, it's going to come back 10 times stronger against the proletariat. The violence always comes back more harsh and more widespread, killing a lot more innocent people. They'll deploy the police. They'll deploy the military. So I understand people are not exactly crying tears for this CEO that lost his life. But and I also understand people who say, well, we've tried everything else, so violence is the only answer. I get it. But the point is, how do we take this energy from here and actually scare them? Not because sometimes you do have to scare their comfort to get action. Your thoughts before we move on?
Well, it's going to be 2 more years before there's electoral pressure, but before there's another election in the House or the Senate. But I don't think that we should. I think that one of the things that people get into is not pressuring all of Congress. They'll just pressure, let's say, the Democrats, because they believe that they're the ones that will do it. But I think this is an opportunity for constituents to, take it a step further, flood your congressmen and your senators' offices with phone calls, letters, complaints. We should take this from flooding UnitedHealthcare, which isn't going to do anything about it, to flooding our representatives and flooding the DOJ.
Well, it's also, Zeynab, I've been clear forever. I don't think we're going to have a general strike tomorrow. I'd like one, but it doesn't just happen. But why not do some targeted strikes now that there's energy out there and this
Great idea.
Well, Amazon, why not strike Amazon, not just the first day of the month, do it during the holidays. Why not switch your money from corporate banking to credit unions? Why not go after Walmart these things, along with donating money for mutual aid for workers that will be affected? We don't want to hurt the workers, but we do want to hurt the quarterly profits. We do want to hurt the ability for them to do stock buybacks. Because if you affect Amazon or Walmart or JP Morgan, if you affect their quarterly profits or their revenue for even a month, you'll start seeing change, because they'll call their employees Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Because to be clear, despite Trump's bravado, if you're watching MAGA, sorry to burst your bubble, he's a servant for them too. He raised a shit ton of money from billionaires, and look who he's putting in his administration. So he fooled you into thinking he's some populist and champion of the working class. No, he's not. Follow the money. Follow who he surrounds himself with. For God's sakes, in 2016, he appointed the CEO of ExxonMobil as his Secretary of State. So sure, you might have rallied with him when he shit on Democrats, but he has proven time and time again he is not a friend of the working class. But this is an opportunity. Hit them violently in their wallet.
What if everyone refused to pay? What if we set a date, I don't know, 3 months from now, and everyone skips that month paying their insurance premium?
I like it. Start the revolution.
I know that, yeah, an insurance payment boycott. Just don't pay that month.
And they can't round you all up. What are they going to create camps for you? It's America, so who knows? So I want to move on, because we're talking about both parties, but specifically, I did not know this, Zeynab. Colin, if you have this is from Sludge. Top Democratic fundraiser is a registered United Health Group lobbyist. No wonder Kamala Harris didn't run on healthcare, and Joe Biden forgot to mention the public option after he got elected. So this is from Sludge. They do good independent work. Democratic bundler Steve Elmendorf has lobbied for United Health Group since 2006. United Health Group is the parent company for United Healthcare. One of the top fundraisers for the House Democratic Caucus is a registered lobbyist for United Health Group, the largest health insurance company in the U.S. Steve Elmendorf, a former staffer for Democratic leadership, has been a lobbyist for United Health Group since 2006, according to Senate records. Elmendorf and his firm, recently renamed Avoke, have been paid more than $6.5 million by the insurance giant for their lobbying efforts, as the company has worked to protect its profits from legislation and quash public support for a single-payer healthcare system. So, Zeynab, while you were doing Justice Democrats and while you were, trying to get progressives elected, this guy who fundraises a shit ton of money for Democrats, he was lobbying them with propaganda and nonsense to fight Medicare for all. But there's more. There's more, and it's more recent. So this is from 2020, Politico, Biden's aides, headline DNC fundraisers with lobbyists. Biden's camp doesn't accept lobbyist donation, but campaign chair Steve Ricchetti and top staffers are raising K Street cash. So the DNC started accepting checks from lobbyists again in 2016 and has continued to do so as Biden prepares to accept the Democratic nomination next week. And while the Biden campaign has sworn off contributions from lobbyists, it has dispatched top staffers to headline at least 4 Zoom fundraisers this month, benefiting the DNC and hosted by prominent Democratic lobbyists. Steve Elmendorf, well-known lobbyist who hosted a DNC fundraiser last week with other Democrats, said that since the Biden campaign won't take lobbyist checks, he has turned to giving to the DNC and state parties instead.
Yeah.
And by the way, more recently, this is from 2024, 3 Democratic lobbying firms with close ties to the White House are cashing in under President Joe Biden, more than doubling their federal lobbying revenue since he took office. Washington Free Beacon reported. One of those firms, led by longtime House Democratic leadership aide Steve Elmendorf. So again, this happens with Republicans too, but the Democrats who claim that they believe in universal health care, one of their biggest fundraisers is a lobbyist for the very healthcare company that has been killing Americans. Let's be clear. United Health Group has been killing Americans, either directly denying care or delaying necessary care. And it's not just, Zeynab, people who die because they are preempting care. They're shortening people's lifespans because they can't get preemptive care. People get denied, necessary mammograms. I read on Reddit one horror story of a woman who had cancer. It went away. She felt that it had come back. She put in to get a scan. They said you have to wait an extra 8 weeks because you got one. I don't know.
Can I give folks a little bit of historical context on that?
Yeah.
So it's easy to forget how the ACA came about. The Affordable Care Act was actually a Heritage Foundation plan that was implemented by Mitt Romney in his state years before it was adopted by President Obama. And as we were screaming at the time, this is mass privatization of our public healthcare systems. Once it was implemented, once the ACA was implemented, more than 1,000 nationwide healthcare clinics closed. Now, some of you guys are probably my age, and you can remember you could go into the healthcare clinic and you could get things like a pap smear. You could go and you could get your teeth checked. You could get mammograms. You could get prostate exams. You could get cancer screenings for free. We had essentially a bare bones universal healthcare system, but we had more healthcare then than we do now that was completely public access. When you had a child, you could go through your entire process through the healthcare clinic. You could go and you could see your OBGYN. You could go and you could get the prenatal health care that you needed. And then you could get the postnatal health care that you needed. You could get your shots. You could even get baby formula through WIC. And you could go for a cold. More than 1,000 of these healthcare clinics were bankrupted and closed because that money was shifted from federal subsidies into privatized insurance. So there were a litany of universal programs at the time where people could get a certain amount of care, as well as almost everyone who made less than $200,000 a year. And this is back in the 90s. $200,000 a year back in the 90s. I'm not adjusting for inflation. I'm saying back then that was the cap. You could get a medical card, for your child, what we called a medical card. And everyone, their kids were insured. Most parents were quote unquote insured, but they had Medicare. They had Medicaid. And as soon as the Affordable Care Act went into place, more people got quote unquote insurance. But the amount of people getting care greatly reduced because all of it was privatized under the insurance company, and all of the actual public facilities were whittled down. At the time before this, there were also hundreds of millions that were going to hospitals for hospital programs where if you had a surgery, if you had an emergency, you had your appendix taken out, whatever it might be, you could go to a Catholic hospital, you could go to a Jewish hospital, you could go to these institutions, and you would be able to file paperwork and have that covered through federal subsidies through the hospital, more than 1,500 of these hospitals, many of them rural, were also closed down because the federal subsidies were essentially cut because everything was privatized to run through the insurance company. And now most of Medicaid and Medicare, which used to not be ran through insurance companies, are now being ran through insurance company. The greatest purveyor of Medicaid and Medicare right now is United Health. They have a near monopoly, not quite, because Anthem, Blue Cross and Blue Shield is still there. Humana, there's others that are still heavy in the market, but United has a massive share in Medicaid and Medicare claims. But before the ACA, this was not the case. You did not go through an insurance company when you had Medicare. You went straight through the government. There was no middleman. So Obama essentially privatized what we had, which was a bare bone system, but we had a loose public healthcare system that we no longer have.
Zaynab,
We have short memories on this stuff. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Has anyone ever told you you're very smart?
No, not usually.
That was a wonderful dissertation. And by the way, I love when you say something that is a perfect segue to the clip that I wanted to play.
Great. Sorry, I hope my dissertation didn't say too long. I have organized.
No.
10 years, so.
No, that was very educated. People were saying great reporting because I didn't know a lot of that. So thank you. And by the way, welcome new Status Coup member Carol just signed up. So keep signing up. Keep signing up. By the way, I should have said, as a Status Coup member, you get access to behind the scenes videos when we're on the ground, and we do a monthly call with our members through like a program like Zoom. So you get to support us, but we also try to give back. We do a monthly call on a program like Zoom with me and others. We take your questions, comments, concerns. So it's a lot of fun.
We also have an awesome community. You'll get to meet them in the chat and stuff, but we have an informed community and an amazing community here as well.
Don't say community without giving my wife credit, because she came up with that, and then she gets mad at me if I don't give her a shout out. So
she deserves credit for that one. That's good.
Yes. So the Pod Save America Bros, the Obama guys, they did a stream reacting to this murder, and John Favreau, in specific, he was Obama's speechwriter in 2008. Then he was in the Obama administration. He had something to say. First, coming up with twisting himself into a pretzel for why they couldn't get more than Obamacare. So we'll react to that. But then he talks about the polls and tries to convince you that actually people don't want universal health care and don't want the government providing health care. But he does it in a very sneaky way. We're going to play the full clip, and then we'll debunk it after.
Just to put some statistics there, Kaiser Family Foundation did a very large poll June of last year, June of 23. 81% of people give their health insurance a rating of excellent or good. Now, if you're in poorer health, that number falls, but it falls to 68%, still pretty high. 58% say they've had a problem with their health insurance in the last year, though half of those people say it was resolved to their satisfaction. And then 27%, so 1 in 3 people, say in the last year they've had a specific issue with a claim denial or the insurance company paying less than they had hoped the insurance company would pay. Clearly a problem. To your point, though, let's talk about what's happened. Let's talk about what the barriers are, right? What happened when we tried to pass the Affordable Care Act, right? Which was a Herculean effort that cost a lot of Democrats their jobs, a lot of House members. Everyone talks about what happened in 2010 and why didn't down ballot win, and was it OFA or this or that? No. A bunch of people took the vote, knew that they would probably lose because they took the vote for Affordable Care Act, but they thought it was important enough to do anyway, and they did it. The Affordable Care Act, which didn't even pass with a public option because we didn't have the votes for a public option, which still isn't single payer. We passed a bunch of insurance company reforms that put a bunch of new regulations on insurance companies, but we couldn't get more than that. Fast forward to the 2020 Democratic primary, where the central debate in the primary was over Medicare for all. And what happened?
I'm going to play the rest, but can we just point out, Zeynab, when they were, quote unquote, fighting for a public option, which they weren't, this was when the economy had fallen off a cliff. Okay, people would have voted for a paper bag if it wasn't George W. Bush or a Republican. Okay, so they had the lever, they had the momentum for a public option,
They had the House and the Senate. If it wasn't for the filibuster, the
Right.
first 2 years, Obama had a full majority.
Right. And they could have, Obama, say what you want, he had the skill of great oratory skills. He could have shamed those senators. He could have went on a fucking crusade against Joe Lieberman and the rest of whoever were the Democrats blocking the public option. Same thing Biden could have done with Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. They did not. So if you don't fight, you have no chance of winning. Obama did not fight when they had the opportunity to fight. So I don't want to hear from this pod bro. Not that it would have been a slam dunk that they would have got it, but he could have went around shaming these senators blocking a public option or universal health care. He could have. I mean, they had the disposal to share the healthcare horror stories. So don't tell me they took Herculean efforts to get this. They did not. Keep going.
There, Medicare for All ended up less popular than it started at the beginning of the primary, because when you ask people, should the single payer, we passed a bunch of insurance company reforms that put a bunch of new regulations on insurance companies, but we couldn't get more than that. Fast forward to the 2020 Democratic primary, where the central debate in the primary was over Medicare for All. And what happened there? Medicare for All ended up less popular than it started at the beginning of the primary, because when you ask people, should the government guarantee health insurance, people say yes. Like 60% say yes. When you ask people, do you think it should be a government-run system or a private insurance system, more people want private insurance than they do government. That number has narrowed now, but that's still. So it is a problem with the insurance industry. It is a problem with their lobbying. It is a problem with the money in politics. It is certainly a problem with the Republican Party. But it's also, we have work to do convincing people to change.
Okay. That's bullshit, because it's not a government-run system.
No.
And that is the propaganda that either he doesn't know or he's just dishonest. But that's the propaganda that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton put out there during debates. Little Mayor Pete put out there during debates. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. It's not a government-run system. It's a government-paid-for system. The government is the administrator of the system. All the 90% of the unnecessary middleman is cut out, and the government just pays the bill. So the government allows doctors and hospitals to use their best judgment on what care is necessary and not care, and the government pays the bill. Mm-hmm. Where you pay the bill, we, the taxpayer, pay the bill by paying a little more in taxes. But for the little more you pay in taxes, you save money. Not to mention, it's a lot better. You know, if these people are capitalists, capitalism, the economy would do better. If you had more money in your pocket because you're not paying crazy deductibles, co-insurance, co-pays, surprise medical bills, you could go out to dinner more. Maybe go on a vacation.
Save up to $5,500 annually. $5,500 annually once allotted for the taxes, if there was even a tax increase, because an argument can be made that there is a lot of frivolous spending, especially military spending, that could be routed for, you know, a single payer healthcare system. And people act like this model doesn't exist when we're the only industrialized country that doesn't have it. And hell, there's unindustrialized countries that have universal healthcare programs. We're one of the few in the world that doesn't have some sort of healthcare for their. I mean, Cuba has it. Cuba has it. Has excellent healthcare for their citizens. For instance, every industrial France, England, Scotland, Ireland, you know, Italy, they all have some sort of universal healthcare system. Canada, we're one of the only in the world that doesn't. This guy's acting like there's not a model out there. PodSave is acting like there's not a model out there that exists. And is one of the things that strikes me about this interview is that they're not considering what is swaying people's minds. For one, how are these questions even worded in this survey? I'd like to know. Two, what was all this propaganda, the millions that was spent in propaganda from not only the healthcare industry, but our actual representatives naysaying single payer healthcare, gaslighting us about it, mainstream media gaslighting us about it, like we're seeing corporate media do right now, not giving us facts on it. This sways public opinion. So it's this, a lot of, I feel like, especially Democratic Party talking heads kind of do this analysis of public sentiment based on one poll that they found somewhere that they pulled out of thin air, or, you know, a Reuters poll, or in this case, a Kaiser poll. And they'll base their entire analysis on it. Never on the ground, never talk to people, never organized. So of course they're going to be shocked when something like the response to the UnitedHealthcare killing and people being so upset, it drums all of this up for people. Because anyone that's been on the ground knows, and you know, anyone that's actually talked to people in real life and not just polls will understand that this is the sentiment. But it feels like gaslighting. It's head think gaslighting.
And movie making man says Zeynab Day is great. Where can I find her articles? The link is in the description. She has the Bullhorn Bulletin Substack. So you could go support her work. Click on the link to her Substack. It is in our description. Correct? Bullhorn
Yes.
Bulletin? Great. And that's another great segue, because we are on the ground and we've been covering the healthcare Hunger Games for years. For years. So Colin cut a few clips before I show you some of our healthcare coverage. To be clear, remember I was saying, Zeynab, maybe we shouldn't be getting the information or getting the commentary or analysis from people like Chris Cuomo with a net worth of $16 million. Well, Jon Favreau, apparently in 2020, he sold a nice Tudor-style LA compound. Oh, no, he bought an LA home for $3.5 million. And then in 2023, he flipped that same home around for $4.4 million. So 3 years apart, bought it for 3.5, sold it for 4.4. This is who we should be listening to. And I'm not knocking you if you're rich. There are wealthy people, not a lot, but there are wealthy people who actually give a shit about others and kind of sort of get it. I mean, we're all kind of creatures of our environment. So obviously you might not be as connected if you're wealthier, but there are wealthier people that care, that have empathy. But most of them are completely disconnected and elitist fucks. They might not be horrible people, but they're completely disconnected elitist fucks like that guy. So I don't want to hear that guy talking to me about, we need to convince more people. The people are convinced. You need to stop pushing propaganda like government-run healthcare. It ain't government-run. Government pays for it. The doctors, the hospitals, and the medical professionals run the system. I want to play some of our reporting on the ground so you see we've been on this beat long before Luigi Mangione or others, and this is the kind of stuff you might have not seen before if you haven't been to protests, because you're not going to see it in the media. Colin, play whatever clips you cut.
I'm a retired librarian with New York Public Library, and you may have seen me at the reference desk for over 20 years. So now I'm retired with disability. I have both a hearing and vision loss. This condition is progressive and gets worse slowly over time. So while I was working, I had a moderate hearing loss and was able to see at the desk. However, my hearing began to get worse, and it became harder and harder for me to hear. I became a candidate for a cochlear implant, and I had a cochlear implant, and it was successful. It restored my hearing. However, because of my vision loss, I could not determine direction of sound, and I needed a second cochlear implant. together with my doctor, who was the head of NYU Medical Center, we scheduled the surgery. I was all set. And once it happened, but the night before my surgery, I received a phone call. My surgery was canceled. This could not be. How could this happen? My doctor told me it was canceled by Aetna Insurance, a managed insurance company. They said my surgery was experimental, and they were using data from over 20 years ago to back their claim. Very false data, not true today. It was a successful surgery for many people. Anyway, my doctor and I had to appeal my surgery. This is what happens when people are denied. What do you do next? You have to appeal. First, you appeal to the insurance company. But this insurance company fought every step of the way. It took months. I had to appeal all the way to the New York State Insurance Commission, where 3 doctors ruled that the surgery was indeed necessary, and I was able to get the surgery. Not everyone will get all the help that I received to fight.
You know, Zeynab, as this story has come out and as the outcry against the health insurance industry has come out, I have seen so many stories in the comments of people saying their surgeries were canceled like the day before, that week, and not just for that poor woman and her hearing, but for cancer,
Yeah.
for kidneys. I mean, serious life or death things, surgeries canceled because pre-authorization didn't go through or some crazy shit. But another crazy thing, you know how many other news reporters were at that protest?
None.
We were the only outlet. We're often the only outlet on the ground covering these protests. That's in New York City. You don't think CNN, which has their headquarters in New York City, could go cover a protest? How about Pod Save have that lady on? How about Chris Cuomo have that lady or anybody on so we could stop listening to millionaires bloviate and actually hear the victims, the real victims, which are the American people?
They'd rather invite the CEO of Humana.
Oh my God. These are the victims. And this is the stuff that the media, and it's not just CNN, I'm talking across the board. Frankly, do you see a lot of independent outlets even covering this outside of the murder and the intrigue on the shooter? There's not independent outlets out there on the ground covering these things. And you don't necessarily have to be on the ground. It's not for everybody. I mean, you don't have to go out. But do you hear a lot of substantive coverage on the healthcare Hunger Games out there outside of when a CEO was murdered? No, you don't, because it's not clicky or whatever. But this is a major story. And this is literally in the wealthiest country on earth. I mean, this is corporate eugenics. I don't know what else to call it. This is corporate eugenics. And it has to stop.
These are the death panels that we heard so many of our lawmakers fearmonger over. And really, at the end of the day, they're not talking to you. They're not talking to me or you. They're talking to the people that can afford to skirt the system if the system screws them over. Because It's like, well, if we have universal health care, then maybe I have to wait a little bit longer on my, even people upwards into the upper middle class are now struggling to find specialists, PNHPs, or their PCPs or primary care providers, because not only do we have not only are claims getting denied, but we have a shortage of people willing to work in the healthcare industry here. And the reason is, one, education's really expensive. People can't afford to go to school, and it's almost impossible to go to school for medical in the United States to become a doctor, especially. Nursing is difficult, but it's not as difficult. But we have a shortage of healthcare providers because of that. And also because these insurance companies denying claims, doing what they're doing is bankrupting It's bankrupting healthcare providers. It's bankrupting doctors. I helped 3 different candidates that were formerly physicians that decided to run for office because they couldn't treat their patients. They were so frustrated that they could not give care to the patients that their patients needed because half of what they needed to have done was denied, or once they rendered services, the insurance company was unwilling to pay the pay the healthcare provider. So now you have where you're waiting a year to get a cancer screening. You're waiting a year to sometimes get screened for potentially life-saving analysis of what's going on with you. People are, not going in and finding out that they have cancers until they're already in phase 3, stage 4, stage 3, stage 4, when it could have been prevented if they had been approved to go to a specialist a year earlier when they first applied to go. So, I mean, it's kind of in that way, it's also crossing class lines because even people that are more well-to-do are struggling to even get into the doctor. We have death panels now.
Absolutely. I want to play another clip Colin pulled. This is, again, more of our on-the-ground reporting. This is the kind of stuff you're not seeing on cable news. You're not seeing quoted in the New York Times. You're not really seeing on podcasts for the most part. But this is the actual victims. It might not be as salacious as a CEO gunned down in Manhattan, but death is death. And these people are not considered by corporate media to be victims of murder, but they are. Let's play it.
We've been fighting in New York City for 3.5 years. Mayor Adams, who allegedly has enough money to go flying around the world, staying in luxury hotels, allegedly, always has the money to fight us in court. He's using our taxpayer dollars to continue to fight. He's appealing. He's lost 9 times. And we are calling for Mayor Adams to stop this malicious attack on municipal retirees who have been who worked for decades in New York City. These Medicare Disadvantage plans are notorious for ripping off the Medicare Trust Fund in the amount of billions every year, and they upcode. That means that they make it sound like people are sicker than they actually are, so that they can charge the Medicare Trust Fund more than they actually should. These Medicare Advantage plans are being investigated for fraud. It's well known that they have used deceptive advertising to get people to sign up for their plans, because most people get confused with the name Medicare Advantage. Medicare is not Medicare. The only Medicare is our original Medicare, and it is simply not an advantage. It is a disadvantage.
So the media will cover wall to wall when Eric Adams is indicted for whatever the fuck he did, taking money from Turkey and ripping off taxpayers and lavish flights, and they should cover that. But they don't seem to care as much when the New York City mayor, and he's just one of others. I mean, Trump started the process of trying to backdoor privatize Medicare. Biden continued that policy. I'm sure Trump will do it again. If you don't know, the federal government's also trying to push people who paid into Medicare. It's not an entitlement. People paid in for their whole working lives to get Medicare, to push them onto Medicare Advantage, which she calls disadvantage, which is essentially privatized healthcare.
There's zero coverage on the scandals with Medicare Advantage, and they're vast. There's no one can bring that.
So basically, you remember, the ads years ago, Paul Ryan, pushing Granny off the cliff. Well, Eric Adams, that's essentially what they're doing. These are, elderly people who paid into the system. They deserve Medicare. That's what I think we should all have Medicare, but these folks paid into it their whole working lives. And it's barely being covered that mayors of one of the biggest cities in the world are trying to swindle them and kick them onto a privatized healthcare plan that's going to cost them more money. They should be drinking Mai Tais on the beach and enjoying their sunset years, not fighting scam costs to profit UnitedHealthcare and Aetna. It's disgusting. In cultures, indigenous cultures, and a lot of cultures, you're supposed to revere your elders. I've seen it particularly in Native American cultures. Put them on a pedestal. In our capitalist hellscape, we're going to squeeze every last dollar out of Granny and Grandpa. I mean, it's just disgusting.
And on the Medicare Advantage plans, there is a lot of deceptive advertising. And I know that there are organizations that have been fighting to have the DOJ investigate the deceptive advertising, because the way that it's working for Medicare Advantage patients is that if you have Medicare already, and then you get on, like, let's say the Medicare Advantage Part C, which they will lie to you and just say, well, this will cover anything that Medicare itself isn't going to cover. What ends up happening is Medicare Advantage C ends up getting prioritized over the regular Medicare, and then they're getting denied coverage because they have Medicare Advantage C, even though if they didn't have it and they just had straight Medicare, they would have gotten the treatment.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the whole system is just absurd. And to be clear, I mean, they're going to move off of it. I mean, they'll cover, once Luigi Mangione, is extradited to New York, they'll cover as more information comes out, whatever his specific experiences were with the healthcare industry. But they're going to move off this story because they don't want to highlight the for-profit healthcare system and people's disgust with it, because the media profits from it and the politicians profit from it through the donations. We're going to stay on it because this is not a democracy. This is not representative democracy. If you pay your taxes, you work, you follow the laws, and you could basically die if you don't, have enough money to pay for your cochlear implant or, mammogram or whatever it is. And to be clear, I think Bernie makes a mistake pointing out the 68,000 people that die without health insurance, because the number is much larger than that of the people dying with health insurance.
Yes.
There's a lot more people dying because of the healthcare industry that have health insurance. So it's not just a crisis of the uninsured. This is a crisis of everyone, including those insured.
And it's not just people passing away. We're dying basically through institutionalized murder, which is what this is. It is people living with disabilities that could get treatment and have a higher quality of life. It's people being disabled and getting, long COVID is having massive impacts on a lot of people, not being able to get treatment for that. That's a new disabling factor that we have. There's tens of thousands of people with that. Back issues. We were talking about back issues, things like that, that can completely change the quality of life. So not only do we deserve to live, we deserve to have a quality of life. We shouldn't have to be walking around with our teeth falling out and, back pain, preventable illnesses, having, strep throat so many times that there's been increases of rheumatic fever because people aren't getting treated for strep, for instance. That can be debilitating. That can leave scars on your heart. That can increase your risk for heart attacks. There's all kinds of compounding issues like this. So it's not only life or death, it's life or life. Being able to live a fulfilling life, being able to work, being able to provide for your family because you can't get treatment for. If it was treated earlier, you wouldn't be in a state of debilitation at this point. There's a lot of people that are ending up having disabilities that might not necessarily have been disabled had they gotten the treatment that they needed.
Absolutely. I want to give the shout outs for super chats and members before we go. And reminder, please, if you want to support one of the few outlets that actually does living, breathing journalism, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. I would love to expand. I want to hire another reporter. I want to hire producers. Zeynab does great work. I'd love to be able to pay her for her reporting, but we need more funding. We don't have any funding from UnitedHealthcare. We don't have any funding from Aetna. We don't have any money from Goldman Sachs. We have no money from Pfizer. We have no money from Facebook, X.
We don't do ads. We don't do ads because, once you end up doing that, you can be beholden. So
correct.
At this
so
time,
our funding comes from
our
funding comes from you, the people. So if you can, for as low as $5 a month, what do you spend $5 a month on a month? I mean, a lot of you spend $5 a day on shitty coffee. Redistribute it to real journalism. Thank you. E.C. Eddington became a Status Coup YouTube member. Thank you. James Clark became a Status Coup YouTube member. Dash Bosch Slice, 249 euros. Drawings of Luigi everywhere. Referring to Luigi Mangione. Justin Garcia, $5, super chat. Price gouging people on premiums, then denying them care by any means possible is asking for violence. The current system is systemic violence. That's basically what Mangione wrote in reviewing a book on the Unabomber. That peaceful actions has brought us absolutely nowhere, was what he wrote. Lady Hawk, $2 super chat. Thank you. Cassandra, $9.99. Jordan, appreciate your work so much. You're a national treasure. Why, thank you. FJ became a Status Coup YouTube member. Very much appreciate that. Lady Hawk, $2 super chat. The war on pain patients needs urgent attention. Yes.
Very true.
Also, we haven't even gotten into it. This would take a whole nother live stream. Dental. People are dying from lack of dental care and living in hell, including friend of Status Coup, Steve Grumbine, who has had a hell of a experience with infections and pain due to lack of dental care. So there's other stuff we will cover. Anu gifted a YouTube membership. Thank you, Anu. Brendan, $2 super chat. Corporate America got felted and are shaken. Yep. Joseph, 1917 super chat. Let the ruling caste tremble at the thought of a proletariat revolution. Emily, $5. People will literally just get onto billionaire security teams to leak information to vigilante groups. They could be screwed no matter what.
Oh, Emily's given those revolutionary ideas. Thanks for the tip, Emily.
Be careful. Google might be monitoring you, Emily. Brendan, $2. CEOs right now be like, stop the feltoning. Emily, $5. I guarantee you there are more people who would lay down their lives for the good of their country than there are billionaires in the USA. I sure hope so. Anita signed up as a Status Coup YouTube member. And by the way, we appreciate everyone signing up at YouTube. For those considering sign up, we would ask you to do it at our website. It's okay for those that did it on YouTube, but we prefer our website because if you sign up at our website, we have access to your email. If you sign up on YouTube, we don't get your emails. So we want your emails, not to steal your data, but to send you updates and to tell you when we're live.
Also, YouTube takes a good
pretty hefty cut.
If you sign up on the website, it goes straight all to the news network without giving to billionaires. So,
so if it's, for those of you that signed up on YouTube, no problem. But for those of you considering signing up, we would appreciate doing it at our website. Or for those of you that did it on YouTube, feel free to sign up on our website and then cancel on YouTube. Brendan, $5. My dad was a veteran and I saw him pass away, all because the healthcare industry would not help him. His life could have been saved and prevented.
So sorry, Brandon.
The VA is a whole nother can of worms. Denise, $5 super chat. It's the people versus the United Corporations of America. Oh, I feel like that's a good TV show. It's been misrepresented as a left versus right issue to keep us from looking up at the culprits. Very true. Lorelei became a YouTube member. Thank you. Sandy became a YouTube member. Thank you, Sandy. Rick became a YouTube member. Donald James, member for 12 months. I can't say what I want in this milestone milestone chat. Well, we don't. YouTube sometimes deletes comments. We don't delete comments unless they're like super, super racist or anti-Semitic. Emily, $10 super chat. The threat of things getting very serious will amplify all boycott and peaceful protests. So however you want to put pressure on the powers that be, now is the time. Love it. Oh, duh. Became a YouTube member. Thank you. Thank you. Anu gifted a Status Coup membership. Yes, if you're already members, you can gift memberships to others. So thank you for that. H-Tub became a YouTube member. Mary became a YouTube member. Emily, $5. It was shared in chat that there are only 800 billionaires in the USA. That's all. But they have a whole lot of army around them, those 800, don't they now? Anu gifted another membership. Thank you, thank you. Anu, $5 super chat. Can I recommend Honest Ads healthcare video? It's comedy, but it hits different. Check it out. Honest Ads healthcare video. Carne Verde, $10 super chat. Thanks for always being righteous, Status Coup. Thank you for supporting us. Adriana became a YouTube member. Thank you, thank you. And Ray became a YouTube member. This is greatly appreciated. Again, we are completely independently funded. And there's a lot of people that claim to be independently funded, but then name their studio after corporations. Not naming any names. TYT. So we are actually independent. And it is a lot harder to do this truly independently. It is very hard to fund actual on-the-ground reporting without corporate funding, without major donors. But we've managed to do it. But we want to expand. I don't want Status Coup to be, mostly my face with guests here and there. I want to hire reporters and others. So please, please support us if you can. StatusCoup.com/join. We are going to stay on this story. So please, thank you to Zeynab. And Zeynab, tell everyone how they could find your work.
You can find me at Zeynab Day, Zeynab. Day, Day, on Twitter. You can find me on bullhornbulletin.com or bullhornbulletinsubstack.com. And yeah, I'll be around.
And the link to her Substack, which you definitely should join, is in the description. Thank you, everybody. Got to go to my daughter. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good night.